Who is the most underrated person in history?
Henry Ford. In business, engineering, and manufacturing, he's revered like a god. Professors like to gloss over his overwhelming anti-Semitism. Ford wrote and published a wildly anti-Semitic newspaper, which were spread around the Ford Motors facilities. Those papers were republished in Germany and became incredibly popular with the Third Reich. Heinrich Himmler described Ford as one of our most valuable, important, and witty fighters. Hitler praised Ford in Mein Kampf and referred to Ford as an inspiration. The admiration went both ways, because Ford was a Nazi sympathizer to the highest degree, hosting Hitler's representatives in his home and hobnobbing with Nazi officers. On his 75th birthday, he was awarded the Grand Cross of the German Eagle, the highest medal Nazi Germany could bestow on an American. But all anyone cares about are his effing assembly lines, which he didn't even invent. The assembly line idea actually came from Ransom E. Olds. Fuck it. I'm off to the controversial section. Muhammad. Muhammad's sincerity in claiming to be a prophet, his morality, his ownership of slaves, his treatment of enemies, his marriages, his treatment of doctrinal matters, and his psychological state. Muhammad has been accused of sadism and mercilessness, including the invasion of the Banu Qurayza tribe in Medina, sexual relationships with slaves, and his marriage to Aisha when she was 6 years old, which according to most estimates was consummated when she was 9. To be honest, if this is God's messenger, I would rather go to hell. Waldo. Why should anyone even care to search for him? He's done nothing. The fact that he's always hiding is probably because he's done something wrong. Plus that fucker only has one shirt.
Douglas MacArthur was obsessed with his legacy while being a far less capable leader than many of the other overlooked commanders in the Pacific Theater. He spent thousands of lives in battles on islands that had little strategic significance, declared the battle for the Philippines over while intense fighting raged on, and was disliked by many serving under him. Go listen to, read Max Hastings' Retribution, The Battle for Japan for a great deep dive into the Pacific War. Edit, added over.
Henry VIII. Let's be honest, all he did was strong-arm the church so he could marry another woman, the fat greedy sod.
I'm gonna have to go with Hitler. His paintings really weren't that great. Coco Chanel. I have recently found out she was apparently a Nazi agent who went under the code name Westminster. She spent most of WW2 in Paris in the Ritz sleeping with Nazi officers and had direct contact to Himmler and Goebbels. She even insisted all Jewish directors of her brand be removed. Edit, I can't spell.
Ioannis Metaxas. He was the leader of Greece from 1936 to 1941. Most famous for not surrendering to fascist Italy during WW2. The only problem is that Metaxas was a fascist dictator himself.
Guy Fawkes. He was a minor cog in a conspiracy that he didn't even know all that much about. He was tasked with a dead simple objective, and he failed. He gave up the names of all the co-conspirators that he knew about, but most of them operated on a much higher level than this chump, so they got off mostly scot-free. He had one job and he fucked up 3, basically. He doesn't deserve the pages that his story is written on in history books.
My sister. I do stuff too, Mom. Remember, sort by controversial for the real answers. Edit, since a lot of people are commenting this, it wasn't just Keanu, Obama, Trump, and Jesus when I originally made the comment, but they were there. Edit, coincidentally, I think those are also the answer to who do you think will make an appearance in the next Bill and Ted movie?
Erwin Schrödinger. He is both overrated and underrated simultaneously.
Pablo Escobar. He was a murderer. You shouldn't like him.
Let's be real here. Who isn't overrated? Tutankhamun. Or King Tut as he is sometimes preferred. He was a boy pharaoh that only reached the age of maybe 18, born from incest and suffered scoliosis, a bad foot, walked with a cane, and contracted malaria, and likely died from an infection from a broken leg. Also, when he came to power, married his sister and had 2 miscarriages. This poor boy had lots of power, but was sick all his life, and likely his advisors made all decisions for him and eventually succeeded him. Also had a very short reign that ended with Egypt at war. They would lose under his successor.
Jack the Ripper. More overhyped, not overrated. But he only killed 5 people. It's not like he's the original Dexter.
6699. He doesn't need that much attention.
Garfield. We all hate Mondays, you ain't special.
This whole thread can be summarized as surprise ending, nobody is perfect.
John Lennon. Don't hurt me, I'm a big Beatles fan, but somebody had to say it. Edit. Not the most overrated in history, but still somewhat overrated.
Amelia Earhart. There were plenty of trailblazing and better women pilots, yet Amelia is a household name because she attempted something she died while trying.
Mother Teresa believed the suffering of the poor was beautiful.
So many controversial options.
Greater than Ransom Olds. With a name like that, it sounds like his parents pushed random on character creation.
Let's not forget he paid thugs to bully staff and crush unions. He also refused Ford Motor Company to innovate later in life, and constantly overruled his son who was running the company.
Till Waldo is just a wandering homeless man.
The real question is, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego?
My grandpa had a story about MacArthur. He didn't like him very much. So Grandpa was stationed somewhere in the Philippines and MacArthur was scheduled to spend an extended visit at their base. Now, MacArthur traveled everywhere with a full-size refrigerator, apparently. Have you ever tried to lift a 1940s refrigerator? They are heavy as shit. So Grandpa's platoon gets assigned to fridge duty. They haul it off the boat, and up this giant hill where MacArthur was to be staying. No sooner do they get it up the hill than they get word that there's a possible air raid incoming, and the general needs to be evacuated to a facility at the bottom of the hill. And where MacArthur goes, so goes his fridge. Back down the hill they go. But then the air raid is a false alarm, and MacArthur goes back up the hill. Back up the hill they go. According to Grandpa, this happened a good 3-4 times during this one visit. So when MacArthur made that famous speech about "I shall return to the Philippines," Grandpa's response was, "I sure as hell hope not."
I fired him because he wouldn't respect the authority of the president. I didn't fire him because he was a dumb son of a bitch, although he was, but that's not against the laws for generals. If it was, half to 3/4 of them would be in jail. Harry Truman.
Don't forget he wanted 50 nukes to nuke Manchuria during the Korean War.
Australians have a special dislike of him too. He was extremely dismissive and critical of Australian troops' combat abilities, notwithstanding that for a time, we were the only army that had beaten the Japanese on land. He blamed Australian troops for his own strategic errors.
He also ordered the evacuation of only army casualties after the bombing of Cavite, leaving the Navy once in the hospital. He straight up abandoned them. Source, Jersey Brothers by Sally Maud Freeman.
Do people consider him a good king? A lot of people know about him because he's the most recognizable British monarch aside from the Queen due to his penchant for divorce and splitting Catholicism again, but I never got the impression that people idolized him or anything.
I've heard an interesting theory about Henry VIII, although this was after he married Anne Boleyn. He was in a jousting tourney and took a bad fall. He had injuries so bad, including trauma to the head, that most people thought he was going to die. He eventually recovered, but I've read that most people considered him a changed person afterward. Current theory is that he suffered a traumatic brain injury that altered his personality and turned him into a much more ruthless person.
Hitler could have become a great flower painter, but he chose the easy path. Ken M.
Greater than his paintings really weren't that great. Their smug ores mock me.
Haha, I searched Coco Chanel on Google. One of the top results was her life in pictures. https://www.google.com/amp/story/s/www.google.com/search/static/gs/mo37g0.html. Super weird that it totally blanks out anything around 1930 to 1950.
The current owners of Chanel are Jewish, so who got the last laugh?
I think I read once that she used the anti-Jewish laws of the Vichy regime to force Jews who had bought some shares, part of the business back.
Also, the perfume smells weird.
Wait, what the actual fuck? Interesting, got a link?
Yes, but he was our fascist dictator.
I thought he was the founder of Iowa and Texas.
The HBO miniseries Gunpowder puts forward a very realistic representation of Guy Fawkes. Recommend for anyone with 4 hours to kill.